By default, administrators in Teams Admin Center can see every device inside your Teams tenant. So here I am signed in as the global administrator, so I can see whatever devices I happen to have throughout here. Let me get to a screen that has some things in it. I think there's 2 here. Panels, there should be 2 panels. So take this look. We're going to limit this down using something called administrative units. So let's assume that on these panels, one of them is in the Americas, one of them is in Asia, or that these conference rooms are just in Asia, and we don't want the Americas administrators administering them. So kind of we want to scope the control of some of our devices in Teams Admin Center. So how do we do that? It's done using administrative units. So I'm in Microsoft Azure now. So this is portal.azure.com. And there's this tab here called Administrative Units. So I'll click on that. I've already created 2, but let me walk through creating the one for Asia. So I'm going to add Asia, description, Asia Pacific, and Australia Administrative Unit, something along those lines. Next, assign roles. So who can manage this? Who are the people? Well, I'm going to limit it to Teams Devices Administrator. So if we go back to this view, notice I've got all this policy packages and voice and meetings and Teams app. Teams Devices Administrators only get this Devices tab. So we'll see that in action as well. So I'm going to pick Lynn Robbins. She's going to be our device administrator in Asia. So we'll add there. So now see we have one user assigned to Teams Devices Administrator for this administrative unit. So let's review Asia, Asia Pacific and Australia, Lynn Robbins, Teams Administrator. Cool. Let's create that, and now we see we have an Asia one with a nice description, which I chose not to do on the other ones. All right, so let's see what does this give us so far. So there's no members or users. There are no groups or anything. Roles and administrators. Let's see what's going on here. Now, replication may take a minute. Lynn may not be in here yet. Oh, there she is. So we have Lynn. You know what? Let's just sign in as Lynn and see what happens. So I'm going to create an in private window. Go to admin.teams.microsoft.com, and I'm going to hope replication has happened already, and I remember her name. I think it's Lynn R. So now notice that Lynn only has these Teams Devices sections here on the left. And as global administrator, I had 2 Teams rooms on Windows. I also have 2 Teams panels, and she sees none of this because none of these devices have been assigned to her administrative unit. So how do we assign devices? Let's bounce back to our portal. And again, just to walk through it again, we're at Teams Devices Lab, Administrative Units, Asia. So there's a limitation with administrative units. So it's not a Teams Admin Center limit, it's an Azure AD limit. You cannot use dynamic groups, and I love dynamic groups. I think everybody should have naming standards like MTR-something, and then create a dynamic group, and you automatically assign conditional access and Intune policies and all that. Unfortunately, you cannot use dynamic groups with administrative units. You also can't use Azure devices. So devices that are registered into your Azure tenant, you can't use devices. You have to use users. So I'm going to use my conference rooms here. Conference room 1, let's see, MTR dash. There's also my other, where's my conference room 2? There it is, conference room 2. And let me grab, one of the panels was signed in as me. So let me grab that one. I was using my personal account to test that. So let's throw me in there as well, select. So now these 3 devices have been assigned to Asia, which means Lynn Robbins will now, when we go back into Teams Admin Center, she will be able to manage these 3 devices and nothing else. So let's give it a minute to replicate, and I'll be back once this has replicated. And if I did it right, we'll see 3 devices that Lynn is able to administer. All right, it took about 5 minutes, and I just clicked refresh. I did sign out, sign back in. That didn't make a difference. It still didn't show anything. After about 5 minutes, I went ahead and clicked refresh inside Edge, and now we can see the one conference room. I did add 2 conference rooms to Asia. I can show that to you really quickly and explain why you're only seeing 1. This is an account I've never signed in with, so no device has ever registered into Teams Admin Center as this user. So if they ever will one day, it'll show up in Teams Admin Center. So that's why we see one conference room. And we see under panels, we see the one panel that's signed in as me. So here's our yelling panel. And you'll notice the rest of these then are empty because Lynn does not have rights to edit any other devices. Now, I went geographic with Asia, Americas, and EMEA. You can go however you'd like. Generally geographic, we can do business units, right? This is the R&D, marketing, distribution, whatever. You can do business units. Up here, I clicked administrative unit, so this shows that an administrative unit is being applied. But Lynn can also be a member of multiple administrative units. So I could have her in charge of APAC and EMEA or Americas and Asia, and she would then go up here and flip between the two different administrative units. That's kind of a little more out of scope, a little more advanced than what I wanted to show, but that is one way you can do it. Now, editing these are, pretty straightforward. You can go to Roles and Administrators, as we saw, Teams Devices Administrator, and we can add an assignment. And so, select members, no member selected, and we would add like Adele. Select, great, Adele is now a member of that. That's administrative units with Teams Admin Center. We're back to my global admin. One thing to point out is we cannot limit by device type. So you cannot say Asia phones is for Bianca and Asia Teams Rooms Windows is for Lynn. We limited Lynn to Asia, but we cannot limit Lynn to just displays and panels, for example. We have to, we just don't have that feature. Anyway, that's administrative units in Teams Admin Center. Pretty simple to straight up. You'll have to work with your Azure AD folks, but show them this video. If they don't know admin units, they'll figure it out pretty quickly. And now you can limit the devices that your administrators are allowed to administer.